Those stories, Cherry Blossoms and Tokyo Story, are quite hard on the kids. The kids don't come out of those well. So, so was that part of the impulse to go back to kind of give them a better hearing? Yeah.
Yes. When I made Cherry Blossoms, I was really in the middle because I was a parent and at the same time I was a daughter. So I had the perspective of the both sides, the parents and the children. And I did find the children quite horrible, just like myself a lot of times, you know, when you're just too busy to deal with your parents and they get on your nerves and all these things. So that was my perspective in the first part. But now for the second, I thought that the children have a very different story to tell, and also the story among the siblings differs so much. And that's something that I've been interested in for quite some time, to research the different truths in a family. And to realize that there's no such thing as one family story. Everybody has a different story within the same family.
Yeah. I guess we should let the audience have a go. If you'd like to ask a question, just raise your hand. Yes, right.
Oh, one thing while you're thinking of questions, you have one already, but I went to this fabulous museum of yours today, the Museum of Anthropology here in Vancouver. A great, great museum. And they have their archive open to the public. And it was very interesting for me to see because they have many different masks, Japanese masks. They have the mask that you was wearing and the mother, Trudi, was wearing here in this film, but also your very different masks and many demons. And it just seemed to fit so well to the subject matter of this film. And it seems as that we all, through the history of mankind, try to deal with our demons in a very similar manner. We always used masks, we always used costumes, and these strange straw-covered people that you see in this film, they are very Bavarian, but the same guys, straw covered with straw, exist in Japan. Same thing, same demons. And they, in Japan and in Germany, they are spirits of they try to expel the winter. That's their purpose. They are the demons of winter. So yeah, it's just very interesting to me how we don't own our culture. We have to not only let me try again. What am I trying to say? That this whole idea of owning your own culture, to a certain degree, yes, it's true, we have our traditions, but at the same time, I think it's really about being influenced by other cultures and being enriched by the knowledge of other cultures and becoming close to another culture and seeing that as a enrichment of our own. I guess that's what I was trying to say, which became very apparent today in this great museum. Yeah.
Okay, if you frame this movie as a spiritual quest, kind of struggle for identity and a spiritual quest, I'm wondering with what you as a filmmaker put on to the contrast of Germany and Japan, why those two?
Yeah, interesting question. I've been to Japan something like 35 times. I shot 5 films in Japan, and each time I found a different country. But at the same time, there are very interesting parallels between Germany and Japan. Of course, the historical ones, they were allies in the Second World War. The axis of evil, that was really Germany and Japan in the 40s. And then the Lost War, the infatuation with American culture, pop culture, repression, until now, until today, where Japan is struggling with a demoscopic structure of society, which is difficult because there are many old people and not very many young people. So there are continuous parallels between those two countries. So a lot of Japan feels very much like home to me. At the same time, it's very, very exotic. So to try and see the similarities at the same time to see the differences is something that fascinates me about those two countries. And I think we're also mentally quite, well, maybe not similar, but there are a lot of similarities which is a bit different than being similar, I guess. Does that answer your question? Not really. Does it?
We don't really have time to explore it.
Yeah, but the spiritual quest, you were asking about the spiritual quest?
In the director's mind, Germany has a spiritual place within you. And just as a Hawaii or Alaska does, there's a certain image of Germany, and then there's also an image of what Japan is.
Yeah.
So you had your main character come out of a kind of German upbringing, but end up in Japan.
Yes, but because of those parallels, I think it's an old topic of the Westerner going to Japan and becoming liberated or finding enlightenment, so to speak, in Japan. But because of the German-Japanese history, this is far more complicated. And still, because when you go to Japan as a Westerner, or I should only talk about myself, I always found myself to be very much at home and at the same time very, very much a foreigner, which forced me to think about my own or to reflect on my own being a foreigner to myself. And that's, I think, what Japan does to you, because yes, it is very, very different. And to become acquainted with yourself and to ask yourself questions that you don't ask yourself when you're in your home country is something that Japan does very well. So yes, it is a spiritual quest, but it's not exactly because of Japan, it's because of what Japan does to you as a foreigner. So it's much more about yourself, which I think is always the case when we talk about being a foreigner, that another country asks you questions. Vancouver is asking me questions right now, like, what do I really know about First Nation? Not very much. Again, very interesting subject matter, because Germans have this very romantic notion, have always had this very romantic notion of American and Native Americans. And there's, again, very, romantic relationship, they think. But it's more about the Germans than about the First Nation.
One of in the middle, yeah.
Hello, I can speak up very loud.
We have a mic right there.
Hello, thank you for coming. This is quite a profound question, and you don't have to answer it if you don't want to. My question to you is, sometimes filmmakers make films in order to achieve some kind of a catharsis. If it is not too personal, did your family have some time with the Nazi Party in Germany, or your parents or your grandparents, and could this possibly be a catharsis for you to find out where you are now fitting as a post World War II child?
Thank you very much for your question. Well, first of all, I think this is true for most women filmmakers. My catharsis is my everyday life, my real family. That's my catharsis every day, and not the films I make or the novels that I write. But I consider myself very lucky because both of my families, my mother's parents and my father and his parents, were not Nazis. My father, he always said he did something very, very minor. He built radios and was caught by the Nazis and condemned to death. And the Americans saved him from the death penalty at the very last moment. So yeah, thanks to the Americans, I'm here. thanks to the United States of America, I'm here. My mother, she was a teenager in 45, she was 14, but her family name sounded Jewish, Blumenbach. But she's not Jewish, her family is not Jewish, but because of their name, they were being harassed, but yeah, and they couldn't prove that they were not Jewish. So this is just by sheer chance that I have this history and not another history, but I think that it's my duty as a German filmmaker to look into that part of our history again and again and again. I think that's my duty. So my personal history is not really something that I can use as an excuse to not look into it, or to not talk about it, to not make films about it or write about it.
Thank you very much.
Can I just say one thing?
Yeah.
I appreciate that last comment you said at the end of it, because that's very important to my family. But I wanted to ask you very quickly, first of all, two very quick ones. I didn't see the previous film, so I don't know, is this based on a true story? And number two, can you tell us about Kiki Kieran? I know nothing of her, and I'm an actress, and I'd like to know who she was. You paid tribute to her at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
I think she was the senior actress, is that correct?
Yes,
If you can tell me a little bit about her,
Yeah.
who she is or was. Thank you.
Kiki Kirin, or Kirin Kiki in Japanese, she was one of the biggest stars in Japan. And she was very, very famous for TV films that she made. And then in the later years, she made films with the director Koreeda. And you might have seen his film Shoplifters, which won the Gold Palm in Cannes. And she was in that one too. That was the one film, the film that she made before this one. This one turned out to be her last film. Not that
She often
last
played grandmothers in Korean
Yeah.
films.
But, okay, since this is such a great story about her, I'll just tell it to you very briefly. Koreeda had mentioned that he always went to a hotel by the sea in order to write screenplays, and also because Ozu, Yasujiro Ozu, famous director, we just talked about his film Tokyo Monogatari, that the first part of Cherry Blossoms was based on. He used to go to that hotel in his days. So I figured after the premiere of Fukushima Mon Amour, I was really worn out, that I just wanted to hang out somewhere for 3 days, that I should maybe try this hotel. So I went there, old-fashioned ryokan, in Chigasaki, and I asked the landlady whether I could see Ozu's room. And she said, oh, sure, I was the only guest. She said, sure, she brought me into his room. She showed me the flowers in front of his window. She said these lines that he was white when he arrived, and he drank a lot of sake, and then he turned pink. Those were her lines. That was the flower. Everything was exactly the way I wrote it, because then I could stay in Ozu's room and start writing the screenplay. Okay, then I cast the role of the landlady, and I asked Kiki Kirin to play it, and although she was very, very ill at that moment, and she had said in an interview that she was ready to die, she accepted to play that part. And it turned out that in 1958, she had started her career in that room, that very room, with Yasujiro Ozu, and she came back to this hotel. The landlady was still there, the original landlady. They hugged, and they had not seen each other ever since 1958. And the last shot of her life is the one where she holds the snow globe in her hand and sings the song Gondola Udara. And yes, that was the last shot that she did. Yes, doesn't it? The only thing though, and it's fiction, yes, it is the right plant in front of the window, but we shot in July, the plant blooms in October, so we had 42 white, 42 pink, 42 dark pink blossoms, flowers that we had to exchange all the time.
Question right there.
Beautiful film, thank you. I'm just wondering if in 10 more years you'll consider making a film about Mia or Robert.
Well, yes, I have another one that I'm writing right now about the sister and her partner. Yes, and the children coming back to Bavaria and living in Bavaria, coming back from Berlin and trying to live in Bavaria.
Any last questions? Up in the top, yeah, you'll have to shout out loud.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, let's finish there then. This film screens again Sunday morning, so please tell your
Come again.
friends. And thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much.